the city. This is Barbara, and today we'll be focusing our attention on how we need joy, spirit of joy and love in our security. The world is being shaken by sudden, very violent attacks, and that is not how God wants us to live. God wants us to live in peace and love and being surrounded by good food and good things, and to search Him as He guides us through various obstacles in our lives. But God wants us to have good life. There are many passages in the Bible about prosperity and happiness that God gives His people, and He rejoices in it. God is not happy when people suffer. God was not happy when Jesus Christ of Nazareth suffered on the cross. So there are certain mysteries in life that we have to deal with, but there are measures of security and safety we can ask God to show us the right way. And I've been praying for this situation because I want to live in joyful neighborhoods. I love good food and nice clothing and good friends and family, and I love the world. I love America. I love the country I was born, Poland. I also love Russia. And that is a miracle, because when I was growing up, there was a lot of fear around Russia. And God transformed that fear to love. So I know it's possible, and it's so much easier to live. Like when I come in the morning and I open the news and I look at the news from the whole world, Russia is another country I love. Whereas in the past, sometimes I was shaken from fear. So it's possible for God to heal our hearts and heal relationships, and also heal and put on the right path relationships between diverse countries, and heal relationship of people residing in a certain country with the government of that country. In other words, all the matters of authority can be properly created, recreated, regenerated in the right way, and properly connected to security measures. I really believe in that. So today I wanted you to see a very joyful video about Spider-Man. Spider-Man symbolizes security. And some of you know, in the old houses, there were spiders, house spiders, and the function was to eat bugs within the house. So the houses were clean. That was the measure of keeping houses, whether in villages or in the cities, from infestation. So spider represents also a form of security, but also is a form of imaginative fear that is within us. So to see a spider character joyfully dancing around is a form of creating an association of security with joy and love and happiness. So let's see. Let's see this video. One moment. Okay, here it is. A really cool, wonderful video, and I just wanted to publicly thank YouTube for this, because social media get a lot of attention at the margins where some bad person creates something that is very violent. But the social media provides so much joy and happiness. I cannot even measure the value of it in human terms, because so many people otherwise would be depressed and in despair, and they can get on Facebook, try to find people who'd be their friends. They have something to look forward to. There's a vast number of amazing information, and people become very creative and they learn things. I've seen so many people starting with very stupid comments and then developing into very sophisticated, high-level comments. YouTube is simply amazing. YouTube provides opportunities for people to express themselves and then to see creativity from others and to start developing high-level artistic ways of expressing themselves. This video that I just showed you is a little work of art. Every motion, the concept, all the images of settings in which the video takes place, the music, the message behind it that is really uplifting, because it shows the spirit of joy that should be in security, in law enforcement, and in authority, and in our guards. Because if our guards are very sad and angry, then an atmosphere is created that is actually very difficult for them to do that job. And having the spirit of joy within the heart, of course, it doesn't have to be manifested in the same way as in this video. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the attitude and the presence of the joyful, loving spirit within security, because obviously security requires seriousness and majesty and a certain respect. I totally agree with that, but we already have that. But we don't have the spirit of joy and that affection, that natural affection that should be harmonized with that authority of seriousness and majesty and beauty and uniforms and very thoughtful gaze. That is a requirement for all police officers and all security organizations and people who work for them. But it shouldn't mean that inside there is spirit of grief and misery and sadness. We should also help to clear that attitude of despair from our law enforcement, because they are human beings like people that they shield and protect, and we have to care about their hearts too. And those hearts should be filled with joy and strength that comes from the joy. The joy of the Lord is our strength. So at the highest level, obviously, that joy should come from God. And I think that when we really understand the power of joy within authority, within law enforcement, within security, then we'll be able to develop trust relationships, because it's very difficult to develop trust relationships when there is no joy. So I think we should rethink how we think about the effectiveness of authority and effectiveness of security in the context of helping people be free from despair. And I'm very powerfully believing it's possible to do it, because my life was at the end of the rope 18 years ago, in total despair, and then one moment on Christmas Day 1998, despair was transformed miraculously to tremendous joy. So God gave me a miracle, Christmas miracle, that restored my life. And then He has been guiding me in ways to understand why this happened at that time, why the despair got connected with me, why was that abandonment. So I'm very compassionate to everybody who is going through that, through despair and abandonment, because I've been there, I know what it is, and I know it can be overcome by grace of God. So we have to have that faith that joy is desirable, is powerful, is strength. Sadness and grief are weaknesses. So when we will start at security from that point of view, that will actually create a much better relationship between security organizations and the population they guard and they help live happy and safe lives. And I think that's the way to resolve a lot of the problems with terror, because terror brings in grief. So joy in the organization and in weapons and in attitudes and in people who use them creates a shield, creates powerful defense from that grief. Because a happy person would not go in London and shoot innocent people. And a happy person would have such, a happy person in the security would have such powerful shield that there would be power in that shield to prevent that terror to take place. That's the logic that I believe is behind the saying that joy of the Lord is our strength. That was the example from my own life. There was despair, and the joy of the Lord from the Christmas day came so powerfully that it prevented bad people and bad things to harm my life. So the joy of the Lord, the joy within our lives, the joy within the security is power. It is very important. So this is something that we have to recreate in our government organizations. Many of you who know me know that I love governments. I love private businesses as well. But there is a certain very powerful connection I have to governments, because I like good organization in society, and governments are created to make sure that everybody on the territory that the government is serving is taken care of, that it's accounted for, is safe, is well fed and housed. So governments are extremely important, but governments shouldn't be sad either. There has to be that element of joy. There is a government that is trying to get rid of arts funding. How sad is that? Because that would mean getting rid of the very source of beauty and joy that actually strengthens the government. So this has to be also understood. That leads me to the second part of my remarks today, which is to pay attention to beauty. I think that this is a universally understood desire, because we all are in the image of God. So every one of us has a measure of beauty. Some maybe 1, some 2, some 10, but everybody has the measure of beauty and capacity to recognize it and emulate it and experience joy from it. So we have to restore beauty appreciation in our governments, because that is also part of creation of strength and creation of joy. How can you be joyful when you see a government building that is dilapidated and in disrepair? You feel sad, But if you feel that the government building is very well kept, very well maintained, very beautifully decorated, when you come to do business with the government, you feel happy, you feel uplifted and joyful. So beauty and joy in the context of a government is not a waste of time and money. Beauty and joy in the context of the government, security, authority is strength, is what creates connection to the people, that prevents despair in the people. And despair is as bad as terrorism. Terrorism is an attack from outside or within by a violent person or group of people, whereas despair is a quiet destruction of life by alcoholism, drugs, lack of will to live, lack of hope. So hope is also extremely important. And that's the third point of my remarks today, that after joy and after beauty, hope should be really extremely appreciated as safety measure. Because people who have hope, even if they are in a difficult situation, they will come out of it, because hope leads to faith, and faith leads to love. And we have a lot of legacy of faith from generations before us, from our parents, from people around us. So we don't have to live in that void of faithlessness and lovelessness. We can strengthen ourselves through the power of hope to connect to the best and to search for perfection and to love one another and to rejoice in each other's presence. So I believe that what happened in London with the attack on the institutions of government, it was a limited attack, but nevertheless it was an example of a very bad situation that created a tragedy. And I think that the response in the long term shouldn't just be to create better security measures, but to restore joy in the government, to restore joy around the buildings, to restore joy in the gaze of security people who are trusted to guard us and to guard the heritage of nations. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to expand discussion on security measures by expanding the territory of understanding of what security is, and also by expanding the financial limits of understanding that ignore those vital measures of beauty, joy, happiness, hope, faith, and love in the context of security. And when we read the Bible, we know how King David, who was endowed by God with unbelievable power of security, because he was king and he was king over God's people, so he was entrusted with securing God's people. And yet he danced and sang before God, and God loved it. So we have an example that the Lion of Judah, the powerful king David, had the spirit of joy and had the spirit of love and had the spirit of beauty and dance and song, and God appreciated that. So we have to turn our gaze away from that constant grief back to the center of security, which is affirmation of life, affirmation of beauty, affirmation of joy, affirmation of love, affirmation of the presence of each other, and also affirmation that international relationships between diverse countries, diverse nations can also have peaceful connection of joy and beauty and trust. Thank you so much for listening to my remarks today, and thank you also for all your prayers, and we'll continue with this wonderful